What's going on? Boys, arm yourselves. Life stuff. But we're going to segment things this time into starting with general whining and then some business professional advice I have learned. I had every reason to feel good today, and I still felt like garbage. And it was so uncanny I needed to think about it. How little sense it made. Because today, I had not only adequate sleep, but more than adequate sleep. I also had more than enough food the night before, and a good breakfast, which I normally don't do. I normally skip breakfast and lunch. And my workload today was supposed to be pretty light. But I still felt dazed, lightly nauseous, and existential dready. Like I am perceiving everything on a fuzzy delay. I can't focus on anything, and a low adrenaline prickling. Like small amounts of electricity running across the hairs on your arms and in your fingertips. Like you've just been punched really hard and you're collecting yourself while you're expecting a gunshot in your stomach to follow. On top of the standard gosh darn nausea. And I think what's going on is I am just so tired, not even of people at this point, but of the people situation in general. And what I mean by that is a few things. First, everybody hates everybody else. Second, that is all anyone wants to talk about. Third, this people situation might get better if everyone collectively both stopped being shitty to one another and cut each other some slack. And fourth, that is never going to happen because when it comes to people, whatever is worse than the worst visible option you can see, that's what people are going to do, invariably, and that is never going to change. And even on an individual level, if you try to be better, you won't really. You might become a less awful person, but that won't stop you from continuing to be a low frequency bad person because that's your nature. And you will never be rewarded for even trying. You'll be punished every time. And I think another thing that's killing me is it seems like people older than, let's say, 50 are already aware of this. They are already aware of how bad the world is, how awful people are, and how shitty you need to be, or how prepared to deal with shittiness you need to be to get anywhere. Yet, those exact people, those generations, feed future generations, indoctrinate them with these ideas about kindness and goodness and decency and all these things they know to be bullshit. Maybe so future generations could be better, which we won't, because those generations, the ones that are indoctrinating us with this shit, or have indoctrinated us with this shit, are the ones using those bright expectations against us. The webs of people who teach you, quotes, good values, like trust, honesty, etc., are the ones who are going to betray you and lie to you, etc. So it's not just that these positive values don't really exist, that you need to overcome them if you want to protect yourself and get anywhere in the world, but also that you were taught them so you would be more vulnerable. I think part of the reason I feel so bad today is that I know what to expect from people, and it is never, ever a good thing. You are the biggest dummy on the planet if you ever expect better from people. And I think what else is bothering me is I hate how human I am. Through pressure and conflict, I am trying to build up a hard shell and claws. And I'm trying to get used to having my fortified walls up at all times and the nerve to use my catapults. And some days it is so consistent and normalized and natural, I don't need to try. But then you have days like today, all that work, all that naturalness deserts me. For no reason at all, today I feel defenseless and powerless. Something today hurt my feelings that wouldn't even really be a blip on my radar on not even a good day, but just a normal day. So everything yesterday was supposed to be done and in order. Yesterday was supposed to be a total rest day. I get a call at 6 in the morning, day off. Get a call at 7 in the morning, day off. Get a call at 8 in the morning, day off. Finally, I decide to answer it. And it's this woman accusing me of not sending her some paperwork when I was supposed to. And it was due 2 days ago. And do you have any idea how unprofessional and inconsiderate it is not to send it in or to contact her or this and that? 8 in the morning. Well, I work out what it is she's asking for, and while we're sitting there on the phone, I walk her through finding that I sent her that paperwork a week before it was due. The subject line of that email being the exact title of that paperwork. So then she huffs and hangs up on me. And I'm thinking a couple things after that phone call. Firstly, is it 2 or 3 hours? I called shortly after the 8, so maybe it's probably 2 hours and 15 minutes. 2 hours and 15 minutes from your first phone call. You could have checked your email and made sure before blowing up my phone on my day off. 2, it was due 2 days ago. Why didn't you call me 2 days ago? We could have worked this out then. Why did you wait until this early in the morning on an off day to blow up my phone and get nasty with me? Shit, if it was due 2 days ago and you missed it, why didn't you call me 1 day ago? And then I come into work today to find she blew up everybody's business emails saying that I didn't get her this fucking paperwork. And then to wrap it all up, half a surprise, half not a surprise. She admits that I sent it, but she did not state when I sent it. So the way she worded it makes it look like she blew up my phone and then got me to send it, not I had already sent it a week before it was due. And despite all this, this is something I can clear up. I can prove I did everything right. But two unfortunate things about life, about people, about professionalism, but not just about professionalism, but just people in general. If you have to prove you did everything right, then the assumption was not that you did everything right. And although others' assumptions are fickle, they do affect you. And unfortunately, even if you do everything you can to create the natural good assumptions in your favor, at some point, for some reason, people will stop assuming the best about you, if they ever did. And if you have to defend yourself from cause for bad assumptions, even if you do defend yourself, you somehow end up looking worse afterward. Like the fact you needed to defend yourself at all indicated that there was a problem you were assumed to be to blame for, and even if you weren't, the fact that assumption was there in the first place creates more reason for more bad assumptions. It's a lose-lose. And then, two, people are looking for things to attack. Always. People always want to hurt something they can feel justified in hurting. And if, unfortunately, that target ends up being you, for reasons outside your control, for reasons you'll probably never even know about, people are so insane. They're insane. If you ever get the chance, Christ, if you can ever magically figure out what someone is angry about and why, it's never going to make any sense. Never going to make any sense. So when people, I should say, decide you're their target for reasons you're never going to know, and even if you did know, would not make any sense, there is nothing you can do about it. If changing their minds and making them reasonable is your goal. And if you were stupid enough to try to be a decent, reasonable person, that is going to be your goal, and it's going to get you snared even worse because that isn't going to happen. What your real goal should be, two goals rather. One, keeping records so sharp in form and in content, you can make their lives very uncomfortable. And then goal two, improving yourself enough, you have options. You can get out of this situation. And in both these goals, your real goals, like these are some dangerous, threatening things, they really aren't. Because there isn't really much you can do unless you get something really damning on someone. And even if you do get something really damning on someone, going that route will almost certainly drag you down with them. So, I just presented these two goals like they are ways really to defend yourself and get back at people, but they aren't. They really are not. But I am finding if you are in conflict with someone, if you have to target something in some way, you target their desires and their comforts. If you can keep them from getting what they want and keep them from feeling comfortable, from relaxing, then you're going to dig into them, I don't know, more than if you just rolled over and took it. Or if you tried to destroy them or some shit. Because realistically, there aren't ways to destroy people that you're going to get away from unscathed. But people are so impatient and so discomfort averse. If you can block them from their desires and keep them from relaxing, that's usually enough to avert things. And I thought a little bit more about existential dread. Like the idea of comedy being something unexpected, right? If you try to boil it down that much, even though that's difficult and probably wrong. One of my probably wrong ideas about existential dread is one's inability to reconcile thinking and knowing. On one level, you can think something. You can think something up into infinity. But you can think down only so far before your thinking, your reasoning, your rationality breaks down. And what you think does not line up with what you know. And what you know is completely different from what you think, because you don't need, or it's not you don't need to think to know, it's that you know in spite of thinking. What you think and what you know are almost always at odds. Because you can know infinitely low. You can know on so many levels without words, but you can know up only to a certain level before you feel like you need to start thinking, to start explaining things. And you can get your thinking and knowing close, but you can never get them into each other's spheres, and they are never going to line up. Because on the thinking level, you live in what is apparently, what you're led to believe is, a rational world, but on some level, on that lower level, on that knowing level, you know it isn't. But if you know it, then you should be able to explain why the world isn't rational, but to explain that knowing, you would need to do it in the thinking realm, and they're opposed. So I think existential dread comes from this irreconcilability. You can think any number of things you want to think while still knowing on some level that isn't true, and you can know something and never ever be able to explain or justify it in any thinking rational way. So you're living, everything you think you know is this huge lie you can never make sense of and never feel comfortable with. Some business advice now. Gustave Le Bon. Prestige. Your appearance is important, but he uses the judge's example. Why do, well, I guess in his time, but still in our time, why do judges wear those silly robes and back in the day wear those powdered wigs? Because they are symbols of power, and if judges walked in wearing normal clothes, even though they are silly, they would lack this symbolic, material symbol of power. And when you, that's called prestige. And when you have prestige, you accomplish a lot without needing to do very much. However, for our purposes, you wouldn't be able just to put on judge's robes and a judge's wig and be taken as seriously as a judge would. Why is that? Well, it seems like people have some kind of unconscious normality sensor. You ever notice how if you buy a new car that is not new, it's new to you, looks used, and it isn't even that impressive, somehow people notice that you are driving a new car and they will comment on it. Have you ever noticed the way if you wear an outfit you are not totally comfortable with around total strangers, people will be able to detect that this isn't what you normally wear, even if they don't know you at all? Well, I think this phenomenon has something to do with the way you carry yourself in these situations, and I do think it is unconscious with other people. I don't think people set out to notice that you're driving something new or you are wearing something different, total strangers, but I think on some unconscious level people can detect something amiss in the noosphere. That makes it hard to cultivate prestige. I mentioned when I was in late middle school, early high school, I tried to be wear a suit guy, and it didn't work, even outside of school, because I was not wear a suit guy. I was a guy putting on a suit. Or in a Robin and the Seven Hoods way, I was someone who was getting dressed just to get dressed. This is not me, this is something I am trying to do for bullshit douche chills hack reasons. And I got douche chill hack responses because it was not me, it was not righteous. So how do you cultivate suit type prestige righteously? How do you do it in a manner people, well, one, that's true, that you aren't doing just to do, and two, that people can't noospherically pressure you down from or out of. I think it's the position you hold, and suit guy does not necessarily need to be your goal. You can cultivate prestige in other ways. But for my example, before we go general, so I am the ED, the good old joke title of my very small nonprofit. We liken it to headlining at a gas station. And for the longest time, I have dressed at that job like Vietnam era lieutenant. Very unprofessional, but also, for my purposes, very effective. And when it comes to dressing, side note, I've found trying to follow trends makes you look really douchey. It is the quickest way to come off as a hack unless you are righteously trend following guy. If you aren't, you are better off focusing on dressing for the effect you want to have in people and expressing yourself in a way you feel comfortable with. So, something that's you that also creates the effect in people you want. But that is not taking prestige into account necessarily. We're talking about prestige today. So I realized something. Although I am headlining at a gas station, I am still headlining. Meaning, I reasonably can justify dressing as a headliner. So I started wearing nicer clothes. And they felt stuffy at first, and I think people could sense that was not me, but they didn't say anything. This is all on this weird, unconscious, instinctual level. This isn't me right now, but it reasonably could be. And the longer I wore the nicer clothes, the more it became me. I think if you can be covered in sweat and slumped over smoking in an outfit and still look like you're supposed to be wearing it, you have achieved synchronization with your drip. And I used to hate dressing up because it was stuffy and it was not me. I was not in a position that would justify my wearing nicer clothes. And for me at that time, why would I dress up when I could dress more casually and feel more comfortable? That is a real, better alternative. But now that I've worn these nicer clothes so much, I can imagine wearing shittier clothes, more comfortable clothes, but it doesn't feel like an option because I would be sacrificing the clothes I'm wearing. And sacrificing the clothes I'm wearing wouldn't just be sacrificing the clothes, it would be sacrificing the prestige that comes with it. And that's not a feeling you feel inside yourself, although it can be. It is the effect you have on people. And I promise you, that sounds like a bad lying salesman line the way I just phrased that. Don't underestimate the effect you can have on people when you have cultivated prestige righteously. So the tools here are dress as nicely or as specifically as the position you occupy in society allows, and do it until it doesn't feel like you're wearing something or you're putting on a show. You do it until you feel like this is your normal. One of the things I'm learning is time is an invaluable tool people overlook. If you do something long enough, it becomes normal. And I don't think people are I think people are so impatient. Not to say I'm more patient, I'm very impatient, which is why this is a lesson I needed to learn. If you're doing something, give yourself time for it to become your normal, and it really can become your normal. And we talk about dressing as nicely or as specifically as your position allows. Two examples, in my mind. You work retail, you stock shelves. You have to wear one of those goofy vests. You can, well, I mean, unless there's a dress code, I've never had to work vest retail. I've worked gift shop retail. As far as I know, there's nothing saying you aren't allowed to wear a very nice collared shirt under your shitty vest. And when you take your measurements and get a shirt that fits well, a very nice dress shirt that fits well, just a nice dress shirt fitted looks really good. And that works professionally and casually. Professionally, you are completely within reason, trying to make yourself look better, look more professional. Casually, you are trying to make yourself look like a vampire, or a hardworking politician when you roll those sleeves up. Fitted collared business shirt is a really good look you can pull off reasonably and get used to, even at a low level. And then, in my mind, mechanic is another one. Collared, clean, pressed white business shirt does not work in the mechanic's context. But I'm willing to bet you can buy very nice work shirts and look good wearing them. Everybody likes a well-dressed working man or woman. Granted, the torn-up t-shirt and jeans, that is a look. That's the ratty look. Frankly, that is the look for most of my life I've been comfortable with, not that I'm a mechanic. But a nice fitted work shirt that you have grown into wearing and maintain as well as you can, that's nostalgic. That's professional. It projects a prestige unique to your position. So, my point here is not just dressing up, but paying attention to the dressing nice and dressing specifically opportunities your position affords you, and then giving yourself enough time to grow into wearing them. Because you can. You will feel weird and stiff at first, but if the way you're dressed, again on that weird instinctive level, is reasonable to your position, people won't bullshit you on it, and then it'll become your normal, and once it's your normal, you will have this magical, not control over people, but effect on them. And I'm glad I checked my notes because I thought I was forgetting something. I think one of the reasons your Sunday best, or Sunday's best, in at least American churches, is exactly what we're talking about. It is an excuse for individuals to own, to wear, and compare against each other nice clothes while collectively improving that religious organization's prestige. Same with monks and robes and any other religious organization and its attire. It's all prestige, even if you don't understand the word for it. And there is more business stuff, but we can talk about that another time. Starting to drag a bit. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.